Let me bring in the ambassador to the United Nations for Canada, Bob Rae, to find out what Canada is doing on the global stage. First of all, Ambassador Rae, always a pleasure to have you on the program. How do you balance the need to get booster shots for Canadians who are clamoring for them, as in the U.S. where you are, and vaccine equity throughout the rest of the world?
Well, I think in a democratic country, it's pretty hard for a political party that is in government to say to its own people, "We're not going to provide you with the protection that you need." I don't think it's possible to do that. I think we have to do, as you suggested, perhaps we have to do both. Every government has an obligation to its own electorate to ensure that they're vaccinated. We also have an obligation to share and to do whatever we can to increase production. And this, I think, is something which is quite exciting. I mean, Moderna has agreed to waive its patents with respect to a project in South Africa. Canada has agreed to invest $15 million in creating a hub in South Africa, which will be a hub for Southern Africa for the production of the vaccine. And I think that's the way we should be going. I mean, Canada was very much involved in these negotiations. We've been very much part of doing what we can to increase production. I mean, I hear the rhetoric about the profits of Big Pharma. Big Pharma does not produce in Canada. Canada is, unfortunately, whatever, for all sorts of historical reasons, we're not a producer of the vaccine at the moment. So let's focus on what we can do globally to increase production, which is what we're doing. We're doing everything we can to get voluntary technology transfer working, because you can waive a patent, but you can waive a patent if you don't have the technology transfer to go along with that, then you haven't made as much progress as you think. So we have to do that at the same time as do everything we can to ensure that Canadians are protected. I mean, that's an obligation of any democratically elected government, is to ensure that their own populations are being kept as safe as possible. I think that's an important obligation.
I understand, but I've been clamoring on this I mean, Stephen Lewis was on this first when he said Canada has not supported this waiver called the TRIPS waiver, which I explained earlier. South Africa, India, and more than 100 countries had said more than a year ago, please waive the patents so we can at least begin domestic production of generics, as happened in the AIDS crisis. Canada kept saying, we're not opposed to it, we're discussing it. But they kept punting the vote down the WTO. Very difficult, saying we're supporting in other ways. But South Africa was livid about that. India was livid about that. Now, by the way, we've also got a travel ban against South Africa. Again, how does Canada walk the walk on vaccine equity when it hasn't supported one of the things that most of these countries really want, which is the waiver of patents?
The key thing. Let's look at the things where we agree on there. We agree on the need to increase production. We agree to work with companies that are willing to waive their patents and to engage productively with countries that want to produce more. That's exactly what they're doing. I talked to the South African ambassador here at the UN all the time. She is very appreciative of the fact that Canada is staying at the table in a way that tries to create the conversation that leads to a better place. You can have 100 countries saying they don't want they want to pass the TRIPS waiver. You can have that, but if you don't have an effective commitment from the large producing countries like Germany, like the United States, like the UK, like the Swiss, all of whom are resolutely so far not moving on this question of the waiver. We have to do whatever we
can. But the U.S. is now supporting the TRIPS waiver. Bob Rae, the U.S. has flipped on that.
No, I'm sorry, Evan, you're not up to date. When you look at the actual conversations that are taking place at the table, the problem that we face is getting to a practical deal at the table in Geneva. And that's where Canada, I think, has been an effective interlocutor with those countries that understand it has to be practically done. Let me come back to my basic point. You can waive a patent, but unless you can also transfer technology, and in some cases of the mRNA drugs, it's quite complex. If you can get that technology effectively transferred to hubs of expertise, as we're trying to set up in South Africa. And as I said, we've agreed to commit $15 million to that hub. and work with other countries in producing hubs, then we're not going to make the practical progress that we need to make. But there's no argument, Evan, with what essentially what you're saying is we have to find the very best and quickest ways to increase production. And we do. We do have to do that. It's hard to do it without the full cooperation of all of the people at the table, including the private sector.
Right. Yeah, I would only say that I read Ambassador Catherine Tai, who is, of course, meeting with our ambassador today, the U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai. She said that the Biden-Harris administration supports the TRIPS waiver. So, maybe they're dragging their feet on it, but I know they have been much more open about supporting it.